Hello my friends. Today I decided to do something that is favorite, easy, and I make it a little bit even easier and more flexible for you to do. We're gonna do cream puffs, choux à la crème. It's very simple recipe. It can be sweet or savory. We're doing a sweet version today, but it takes very little ingredients that everyone has at home. I have here the ingredients, and as you see, I have a boiling hot cup of water. I have 100 grams of butter at room temperature. It's gonna melt in the water. I have touch of salt, just a pinch, a tablespoon of sugar if you're doing it sweet version. If you're not, then you omit this one. A cup of flour and 4 eggs. That's all it takes to make the dough. For the cream, I'm gonna show you next what to do. Meanwhile, let's make the dough. In the pot, I'm gonna add 1 cup of water and I'll bring it to a boil. In that water, I'm gonna put just a touch of salt, 100 grams of butter. The water is starting to boil. We add the sugar. I just melt it. At this point, I lower the heat to medium. And at once, I'm gonna add the cup of flour. And you will have to mix vigorously. As soon as we add the flour, we need to mix vigorously. So, all as one chunk. And now we move until this becomes like a ball, and it separates from the wall and it becomes one clinging mass to each other. Like it needs to become a ball that is coming together, as you see now. See how it just it came all together and it created one ball. I will let it cool just a little bit, and I will be adding 1 egg at a time, mixing vigorously after each addition to incorporate the eggs into the dough. So now it just cooled a little bit. It's still very hot. It's still hot. If you see the steam coming out, that's when we need to start adding the eggs. 1 at a time, and the first one is the hardest because you don't want it to turn into omelette as you add it to the hot dough. So you need to mix fast as you are adding the egg. Now that egg is gonna cool the dough, and it's gonna be much easier to add the rest of them. And very quick. Mix. You can do this part also with a mixer if you find it easier for you. Now at this point, I got all the eggs mixed in. I will add my flavoring, which is vanilla and optional brandy if you wish. Mix them in. Now traditionally, this dough here, you can fill it in a piping bag to make choux à la crème or eclairs, but to make it easy and less hectic, I choose to do it just with a spoon, and I'm gonna show you how. Okay, so here I measured 3 ounces of the instant pudding vanilla. You can also use French vanilla, it's even better. And now I'm gonna add 1 cup of milk. I'll just give it a swirl, just like that, tiny bit. And in that same cup, I will also add 1 cup of whipping cream or heavy cream, just like that. And you just beat until they are thick and nice. And you can add a teaspoon of vanilla to enhance that vanilla flavor. see when the cream has ribbons like this, it's thick enough for our cream puff. So now I'm gonna put the dough into the pot as a small, I want them little bites of choux. So this dough is gonna puff. It's gonna become, it's gonna create a hole in the middle, and it's gonna have a crust around. So since it's gonna puff, make sure that your little dots are not too big, because the bigger the dot, the bigger the choux is gonna be. I want them to be kind of bite size or 2 bite sizes. So what I do is just with 2 teaspoons, I just put a little dough on my pan, just like that. And I don't put them too close because I don't want them to attach after they're baking. And for eclairs, I would do like 3 dots near each other, and it's gonna create a long eclair. Or again, you always have the option to pipe those out of a piping bag. So now that I filled the pan, I just want to make sure that all those little things that are coming out of the dough, they are tamed down, because I don't want them to burn. So what I do is I just wet my finger with a little bit of water, and I just tap them on top, just like that. So now I'm gonna pop those in a preheated oven. Best way to cook them is about 10 minutes at 375 degrees, and then lower it to 350 and bake for 10 more minutes or until they are golden. And that first high heat is gonna give the energy to the dough to puff and separate and make that hole in the middle, that kind of gap where we're gonna fill the cream next. Here we go. They puffed. They're very hot, and see, they grew in size. I'll let them cool, and then I'll show you how to complete those. So for the ganache recipe, every 9 ounces of chocolate, it needs 1 cup of heavy cream. Here I have 4 ounces of chocolate, so I measured heavy cream to be a little less than half a cup. It's starting to boil, so turn it off, and I will add the chocolate, and I will swirl until they are all melted. So this is the consistency that you need to get. It gets thicker as it cools. I'm gonna flavor my chocolate with a touch of brandy. That is optional, of course, but I always choose to do that at the end. I think it adds so much depth and more flavor into whatever I'm doing. Let me give you a hint though, that at this point, after they cool down to a room temperature, you can put them in a Ziploc and freeze them. And you can have them ready anytime you want them. You just get them out. You can fill them after you bring them out, or even you can fill them before you freeze them and they are ready. You just bring them back to room temperature when you want to eat them. They will be a little softer. There's nothing like perfect fresh cream puffs, but that works too. Now, another hint, if you want them to taste as if they just came out of the oven, then freeze them empty, and when you take them out of the freezer, put them in a hot oven for like 3 minutes or so, just to defrost and crisp, and then you have them ready as if you just made the dough just right now. Now that they have baked and cooled a little bit, I'm gonna show you how to fill them the easy way without the piping bag. If you wish, you can still use your piping bag, but I choose to work less and have less to wash afterwards. So with a sharp knife, I just slit the cream puff and I open it. See how it is hollow inside. With a teaspoon, I take a full teaspoon worth of cream and I just feed it like a baby. And then you can just close it back and this is done. Now I'm gonna show you 2 ways how to serve those clouds made in heaven. The first, I'm gonna do the ganache. So now I'm gonna pour the chocolate over. And for those of you who don't really care for the chocolate, what we do is just dust with a little sugar like that, and you have another great way to serve those light, delicious, and irresistible heavenly clouds. Enjoy!